Charles Spurgeon once said, "Let us bless God before we pray, and while we pray, and when we are done praying, for He always deserves it. And even if we cannot understand Him, we will not distrust Him." But we're all human, and even as humans who love God, we have a bad habit of evaluating who God is through the lens of how we feel about our current circumstances. The Psalms continually point us to look beyond our circumstances and see God through the lens of what we know to be true about Him. We see that in today's reading from Psalms 87 to 89. It begins on a high note of praise, then it sinks to the lowest note of despair, and then it ends with the psalmist clinging to a hope that is rooted completely in a deep certainty about who God is and about God's promises. Psalm 87 is a celebration of Zion, the city of God, the special object of God's love, the place where God dwells among His people, the place where the nations one day together will dwell as the people of God, and the place of everlasting delight. The psalm ends with the people of God, in the presence of God, singing about the city of God. They say, "All my springs of joy are found in you." But in Psalm 88, it seems like those springs of joy have dried up, and it seems like God has gone far away. The psalmist is going through some pretty intense difficulty. He says that he's been forsaken like a body in a grave, that the Lord has put him into the deepest, darkest pit. He says the mere sight of him has become repulsive to all of his friends, and there's no way to escape it. He says, "Lord, I want to glorify you, but can I praise you after I die? Can I declare your unfailing love and your faithfulness from the inside of a grave?" He keeps crying out to the Lord, but it feels like the Lord doesn't hear. He says, "Lord, why do you reject me? Why have you hidden your face from me?" And then the psalm ends with him still in the pit, with absolutely no resolution. Some of you might be listening to me right now from that same pit. That's real life. So what do? We look beyond our circumstances. We fix our hearts and minds on what we know to be true about God. As Paul says in Philippians 4, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is admirable, if there is anything excellent and anything worthy of praise, think about these things. That's what the psalmist does in Psalm 89. Life is really hard. It's really confusing, but he turns to what he knows. Throughout the psalm, he continually remembers two things: the Lord's unfailing love and the Lord's never-ending faithfulness. He begins by blessing the Lord. "I will sing of the unfailing love of the Lord forever. I will make known your great faithfulness to all generations." He says that God is the Almighty Creator to whom everything belongs, yet in love, He has come near to us. So we know the joy of walking in the light of His presence. Beginning with verse 28, he remembers the certainty of God's covenant promises that He made to His people through David. He said, "My unfailing love will always be with him. If his descendants disobey me, I will discipline them, but I will never break off my love from him, nor will I ever be unfaithful to my covenant with him." And even though the psalmist says in verse 39 that at the moment it feels like the Lord has broken His covenant with His people, the psalmist knows deep down that the promise still stands, and he clings to a hope that's based purely on the unfailing love and faithfulness of God. And then he ends the psalm where he began, with praise. He simply says, "Blessed be the Lord forever." So let us bless God before we pray, and while we pray, and when we are done praying, for He always deserves it. And even when we cannot understand Him, we will not distrust Him.